it's one thing to be creative. It's another thing to create something and have it like just totally embraced and celebrated. That's a whole nother feeling, man.
This episode is brought to you by FultonFishMarket.com, the most trusted name in seafood. FultonFishMarket.com is the e-commerce provider for New York's iconic Fulton Fish Market, the largest seafood market in the Western Hemisphere, trusted by top chefs for over 200 years. Fulton Fish Market provides a range of world-class seafood options. FultonFishMarket.com can help you serve a wide range of customers, whether you serve high-profile individuals or just strive for culinary excellence. They deliver directly to your doorstep in all 48 contiguous states, providing a comprehensive selection of the finest seafood, from wild fish to caviar and shellfish. When it comes to seafood, FultonFishMarket.com is our go-to destination and the name we trust. Let's celebrate those who support us and dive into this episode of the Private Chef podcast with a taste of excellence and freshness. Visit www.fultonfishmarket.com to get 15% off your first order. Use code PrivateChef at checkout. Welcome to the Private Chef podcast, serving the 1%. I'm your host, Hennche, and on our show we speak to the best chefs, how they honed in on their skills to excel in the industry, and what it takes to work as a private chef for some of the most exclusive clients in the world. Welcome back to the Private Chef podcast. I'm your host, Hennche. Today we will explore the unique cooking style of renowned chef Marvin Woods. Influenced by South and Central America, the Caribbean and Southern United States, and parts of Africa. Also, we will discover the challenges and rewards of hosting cooking shows and how Chef Woods uses this medium to inspire healthy cooking. We will also dive into his passion for writing cookbooks, his philanthropic efforts, and his extraordinary culinary adventures as a foodologist, consultant, and yacht chef for celebrities and noteworthy people. Help me welcome our special guest, Chef Marvin Woods. Thank you so much for making the time today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Hans.
Yeah, of course. So where does your love for cooking come from? That's a question I always like to dig in. Like where did it start?
I have to say that it is an innate gift. And, I've been telling people this story pretty much all my life. I started cooking at a really young age, but, I didn't know about culinary school or pursuing it professionally. I just love going in the kitchen and creating. And one of my blessings is my parents actually supported it. So, I grew up in a time where no Food Network, no celebrity chefs, if you will. And Betty Crocker was a staple. And they created this recipe card file that they would do recipes every 3 weeks. And my mom signed us up for it. And so at this point, I'm like 11, 12, 13, somewhere around there. It was before high school. So it was like 11, 12. And I would get these cards and I was always excited about making these dishes. And they were laminated and they had a picture of what it looked like at the end. And I would blow through these all the recipes within, the allotted time of getting before I got the next batch. And I go to high school, I go to freshman year of high school, and I took home economics. And, freshman year, sophomore year, my home ec teacher pulled me aside and said, you can go to school for this. You could make this a profession. I had no idea. And I said, okay. She got me information on culinary schools, and the rest is history, man. I mean, I walked on a culinary campus and just heard that angel. Oh, I was like, this is it. So that's it, man. And I've been doing it. I've been doing it most of my life and loving it. It has taken me all over the world. And I have a passion for cooking, but I also have a passion for the craft itself and the industry. And so because of those things, man, it's taken me all over the world and has created some really, 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 really amazing experiences for me.
So where in that journey did you hone in on healthy cooking? Why that kind of
Yep.
evolution?
It was, yeah. So for those who don't know me, I'll give you the quick, 2 second, 10-second bio. So I started out, I'm from the Northeast. I'm from New Jersey, just outside of New York. I went to culinary school in Atlantic City. I worked at two hotel casinos while I was going to culinary school. So I worked full time. I graduated, moved to New York, and worked at some really just institutional places in Manhattan. And then I went to Europe. One of the things that I heard when I was in culinary school, and even when I got in the industry in New York, you got to go to Europe. If you're going to do this, you got to go to Europe. Like the first 6 or 7 years of my profession, all my professors and my chefs that I worked for were European. Um, we're talking, right? We're talking mid '80s, and America was not on the map for producing chefs. Like
Yeah.
all the chefs were European, and all my chefs are like, all right, if you're really going to do this seriously, you got to go to Europe. So I spent 4 or 5 years in Manhattan, and then I went to Europe and ended up kicking around for almost 4 years. I got to travel around, but I was based in London mainly. But then I worked in French restaurants and a hodgepodge of different types of restaurants. And so I come back to the States and I land this job in a Manhattan restaurant that was doing low country cuisine. At this point, I'm like 8, 9 years in the industry, and I don't know. I haven't cooked Southern food professionally my whole career, and this is Southern food, but it's different because it was a particular area that is historic in America. It produced rice for 100 years and da 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 da. So I went down this rabbit hole of learning about this food culture, the influences, and that led me into really challenging myself to do it a little bit different because Southern food has such a bad rap. And I didn't want to be like everybody else. And I'm classically trained and I got all this other experience. And so I started applying my classically trained knowledge and my experience to low country specifically type dishes, et cetera. And it put me on the map and it put the restaurant on the map. I mean, we got great reviews, Saget and New York Times and et cetera. And it just stuck because then people started talking to me about how it resonated with them. And then the next thing you know, I'm like this spokesperson, doing doing health conscious type food. So it was totally organic. But then once I got into it and I understood the impact, that's been my journey for the last 25 years. In America, black and brown people unfortunately lead in every health disparity that there is in the country, hypertension,
Yeah.
diabetes, heart and stroke, et cetera. And so when I started learning those kind of things, and also, food is so powerful. Like people underestimate the power of food and diet. And one of the reasons why I feel these health disparities exist is lack of education. And as a chef, I mean, we're around food all the time. We're learning about food all the time. Like I tell people all the time, you never know it all in our industry. If you are a sponge, you can constantly
Yeah.
learn,
Impossible.
right? And so
Yeah.
I started working with nutritionists and dietitians and American Heart Foundation, American Stroke Foundation, American Diabetes Foundation, National Dairy Council. So I went down this whole other path, man, that I had no idea existed, and here we are.
Which I actually think became one of the most valuable avenues to take. Like the majority of the private chef posts that I see, there's
Mhm.
all a lot of health conscious in there. The demand for chefs that have that knowledge is
Yep,
big. The demand for nutritionists and people want to get more out of them food than just comfort. They do want
exactly.
comfort, but they also want to improve their health. And you touched up on something which
Yeah.
I think is worth kind of bringing out more, that maybe for educational reasons, but the diet of brown people might be lacking in terms of the health benefits. And why do you think that is? And where do you think they can make the easiest changes, maybe despite education? Or a lot of it might also be like going to a farmer's market isn't exactly cheap.
Right.
Like sometimes it's just financial constraint too. So where do
It
you
is.
think people can make a real difference for their family?
You know what? The first thing I say all the time is mental first. So it is actually acknowledging that there is some type of challenge or issue, whatever it is. That's the first hurdle to get over. Because if you can get over that hurdle, then you can actually pursue making changes. If you can't get over the hurdle of having to do something different, you'll never have sustainability. And that's the thing that I see all the time. Just getting somebody to stop using a large amount of butter or a large amount of salt pork or fat back or whatever because of whatever they have ingrained in their mind. And I just say, I tell people all the time, I'm not telling you don't use X, Y, and Z. What I tell people is do it in moderation. So I eat
Yeah.
everything, right? There's a lot of chefs because of their diet, their hours that they work, etc., are overweight. Mentally first, you have to say to yourself, I need to have things under control, or I need to have balance, or I need to whatever it is. That's mental. So I might eat bacon once a week, and then I can go weeks without eating it, right? I said, listen, I'm a chef. I'm around food all the time. I don't have dessert every day. Like there's just things that I have in my mind. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I know there's consequences and repercussions if I do X, Y, and Z on a regular basis. And so it's mental first, always.
Yeah. There used to be a disease. I don't know the English term. In Germany,
Hmm.
it's Gicht, but it's basically called the king's disease because back in the days, it was like a problem that only people that had affluence had. And the interesting thing is, in terms of butter, bacon, sugar, desserts, all of that stuff comes at a price point now. It's actually cheaper than healthy food, and we can
Exactly.
all have those diseases based on the food intake we have. And
Yep.
it's kind of horrific that we suffer the abundance.
Yeah. Totally agree. Man, one of the things that I love about traveling outside of our country is just how clean and pure the food is. And it doesn't, Europe, South America, it doesn't matter. Like it's grown completely different. There's no preservatives and additives going on. And it's really disheartening that the American way is just spread out all over the globe, and people are unhealthy now at these levels that they weren't before
Yeah.
because of the American diet. You know,
Yeah.
it's nuts. It's nuts.
Well, I think the benefit of the American diet is the short-term pleasures are catered to in a way that the other cuisines don't.
Right.
But so it spreads like wildfire, and
Yeah.
everywhere where there's a major sports event, like the
Yeah.
first McDonald's, for example, in Germany opened because of the Olympics in Munich.
Right.
And so they actually have a rollout concept where they just follow the big sports event. Like in the
Yep.
Ukraine, there was a European Cup a decade ago, and they started rolling out McDonald's. So they have this game figured
Right.
out. They know where to roll out the next one, and they just grow into more and more markets, and they know how to get the cheap dopamine releases,
Yep. Yep.
and
Yeah.
people just love it, and they're happy
Yeah. Yeah.
to kick out their ancient wisdom for
Yep.
some cheap fries.
Yep. It's true, man. It's true. And so, right, again, I don't tell people don't eat McDonald's, but you really shouldn't eat it every day. Like there needs to be balance, you know?
Yeah.
It needs to be balance. So,
So what was it like for you to get on kind of the national stage and be able to share that with the world? I'm sure this was a great experience for you as a chef, to get an opportunity and share all of that knowledge that you kind of honed in on your personal desire. Like it's something
yeah.
that you learn for yourself. And I think this is even more rewarding when you kind of you scratch your own itch and then you
Yeah.
see, wow, there's actually, people are interested in that and you get to share it.
Yeah. It was amazing. So, I was in Miami. So this was like 2004, 2003, 2004. I opened my first restaurant. It was a 60-seat restaurant, tablecloth, and I got this call out of the blue, which at this point in my life and career, this happens on a regular now. Call out of the blue, hey, would you like to be a part of? Hey, would you like to, you know how it goes. So, answer the phone, and it's a guy. He says, "Hey, I work at a network in Atlanta. Would you be interested in doing a cooking show, or coming to Atlanta to shoot a pilot for a possible cooking show?" I said, "Yeah, for sure." So let's say that call happened in February, and then nothing. March, April, May, I get another call. Okay, we want you to come to Atlanta like in 3 days. It's like, okay. So I make arrangements. I fly to Atlanta. And so by the time this happened, this part I remember specifically because it was a week before 4th of July. So it was me and my wife at the time and my son. We go to Atlanta and, we're in a hotel. Then we go to the studio and I spent most of the day, half the day, whatever, shooting this pilot. And they wanted somebody else on camera. So my Petra, what is her name, and she was my wife at the time, so she was on camera with me as well. And so we shoot this pilot. So end of the day, they go, okay, right, it's great. They said, all right, we're gonna, send it up the flagpole and see if the execs like it or whatever. And you probably won't hear from us for a couple weeks because the holiday's coming up, 4th of July. So you'll hear from us, in a couple weeks. Okay. So we stayed in Atlanta for a little while longer, day or two, whatever, enjoyed that, and flew back to Miami. So let's say that was on Monday. Wednesday, I get the call. You got the job. We start Monday. I was like, what? So, yeah, right after the holiday, we're flying you up for a week. Boom. And so the premise of the cooking show was, and how they found me, I had my first cookbook out. And it was called The New Low Country Cooking, and it was recipes based on the Low Country, but they were, for the time, kind of health conscious. So
Yeah.
they wanted, right? So that's how they found me, and the whole premise was we want somebody to do Southern food, but with a twist, with a healthy twist. That was the tagline or whatever. And so even at that point, it's a fairly new network, but it's a part of a major giant. So it was Ted Turner's networks. So it was part of CNN, TBS, TNT, Cartoon Network. The network that he started was called Turner South. And so they were like, kind of, we're going to throw this at the wall and see if it sticks. Man,
Yeah.
put the show up. And without exaggeration, within the first probably month and a half, I get this call, show's a hit. We're writing a new contract. It's for a year. Boom, 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 boom. Here's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna have you come up like initially it was once a month, and I would come for a week, and I would shoot 3 shows a day. I would fly in Sunday night. I would shoot Monday through Thursday, fly back out Friday. I had a restaurant, and so
Yeah, I was just about to go there. I was wondering how do you run your restaurant while
I
doing
had a
it?
restaurant. Man, let me tell you, at this stage of the game, I had a restaurant. I just got the show. I was Alonzo Mourning's and his family's personal chef, and I was also doing P. Diddy. Like, dude, when I tell you, my head was on a swivel. Like, man, I had one of my best friends, still to this day. His name is Raul, and Raul was my sous chef. And if I had to leave town, he filled in. So we only did dinner at the restaurant. I think I was closed Monday. But when I left town, man, Raul would take care of the mornings. Diddy didn't live in Miami, so I didn't have to do him full time. He was definitely spending a lot of time. He was coming back and forth, but he was spending a lot of time. And then the restaurant was only dinner only. So we made it work, man. But it was a lot of fun. And then the show was impactful. Like, I'd be traveling through the airport and people would stop me and say to me how much the show meant to them, because it gave them a different approach on how to shop, how to cook, how to execute dishes. And it was changing people's health for the better. So the show lasted for 4 years. We did over 100 shows. That, going back to your point, was amazing because, and this as well, it's one thing to be creative. It's another thing to create something and have it like just totally embraced and celebrated.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother feeling, man. It's one of the things to
100%.
me, right? Still to this day, on a smaller scale, it's one of the things that excites me about being a chef. Cooking for somebody, going to the store, creating something, going into the kitchen or the galley, creating something and putting it in front of somebody, and from people applauding you to standing up and clapping and hugging you, like there's nothing like that, man. There's nothing like that.
Yeah, 100%. I've cooked for some families, where there was there was just so little appreciation, and then it's just not the same. You
It's
execute on the
not
highest level.
yeah.
You're delivering, and every day you go home, you're like, why did I spend a day of my life here? And
Yeah.
then there are those
Yeah.
days where they like come back in the kitchen to thank you and like,
Yeah,
thank you
man.
so much. Don't you want to sit down with us for a little bit and you
Have a glass
can
of
talk a little bit
wine.
about
Yeah.
the menu?
Yeah, man.
And I'm like, well, this feels very different. Thank you. Like, I
Exactly.
appreciate it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I try not to spend that much time in the unappreciated space.
Yeah.
Because to your point, man, it kind of robs your soul. It's like, man, I just poured everything into that, and you get like a warm whatever.
I think that's a good way to put it. It robs your soul, and the problem is it does it like incrementally. It's like water tripping into a mountain that's slowly hollowing it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's a good analogy. Yeah. And not for nothing, as a chef, if you don't continue to feed the fire, that's what happens to a lot of people. They get hollowed out. Their soul gets hollowed out. And now it's just a mundane check the box. Like there's no love in food. There's no passion. There's no because their soul's not in it. I never
Yeah.
wanted to be that person. I tell people all the time, I like, I've even when I own restaurants, I'm not chained to the stove. I love to cook, but I'm also in the dining room. And also,
Yeah.
I'm an author, and also I'm doing this. Like, yeah, you have to feed the fire, man. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's true. And there's different approaches to it. I remember one of my
yeah,
chefs, he was always like, no, I don't want to go to the dining room because then the guests feel like if I don't show myself in the dining room that the food is any different. But the truth is it's always great. And so there's different, but I
yeah,
feel you on that because I remember the first couple of times when I started out in my career, it was just amazing to go in the dining room and ask people about their feedback and actually get a chance
yes,
for that engagement.
hmm yeah,
Sorry for the interruption, but we gotta share the news with you. Nothing Fishy from FultonFishMarket.com. They're delivering world-class seafood from New York City's legendary Fulton Fish Market straight to your door. Their fishmongers have helped countless chefs get what they need when they need it for over 200 years. Trusting FultonFishMarket.com means their experts work tirelessly to make your day run smoothly. Let your cooking skills shine and elevate your dishes with amazing seafood from FultonFishMarket.com.
So I applaud you and commend you for doing this podcast because when we were off air, you shared one of the reasons why you do this. And I could tell you, man, I feel blessed to have my career because I had really good teachers early on. And I know that's not the norm in a lot of people's experiences. And I think it makes a difference in one's career. Like I had chefs that, yeah, they were hard on me. Most of my chefs were European my first eight years in the industry. Swiss, German, Austrian, French, British
Tough
even.
guys.
Yeah, man. Yes, but they were good teachers in the sense where they were really strongly about the foundation. And the message was always, if you get the foundation, sky's the limit. And so,
Yeah.
and this when you work and you're coming up as a chef, it's repetition. It could get monotonous. You're making the same sauce but that's what prepares us. That's the process that you can't skip. And a lot of young people don't understand that,
Yeah.
whether they go to culinary school or
Like the
not.
first couple of years are so one-dimensional, man. You're like
Agree.
washing ladders for 2 hours, cutting
Agree.
chives for 45
Agree.
minutes, and you're cutting dices for 2 hours. Like by the time you get to the 8-hour mark, you haven't cooked anything, man.
Nope. It's true, man. I worked at a big hotel, 900 rooms, and I worked in different kitchens. But I remember the time that I hated the most was working in the main kitchen that provided the food for the buffet. I would spend 6 hours,
Yeah.
like literally slicing meat or cutting cake, like a pallet of zucchini would sat next to you, and you're just cutting zucchini the whole day, man. It's like what?
You know, I know the experience. I used to work so I used to go to the European Cups as a chef for the VIP areas. But
Okay,
because the cup is happening in different stadiums, we would process, like, for example, beef tenderloin for maybe 2 stadiums at a time before we actually would head to the stadium. So it's like, hey, we have another 1.5 metric tons of beef tenderloin to cut. And I'm just like, what? Like, did you just
exactly,
slaughter an entire farm or two
exactly.
just for
For
this
those who
one
don't
order?
know,
You
that's
know,
a
and
lot.
then the same comes when the salmon comes. You're like, how many fish did we kill for this
That's a
event
lot.
today? It's like, just like, it's just insane, you know.
It's
And
insane, man.
the amount of product you go through is just mind boggling.
Totally agree. I did.
What was it like for you when you received the call from Michelle Obama's team?
Oh man, funny story. So again, going back to what I was saying about getting these random calls. So
Yeah.
this is after we did the dinner. So I was part of the team. I was part of Marcus Samuelson's team to go do the first dinner. So 3 months after, Sam Cass, who was the chef that the Obamas had full time on staff to head up the healthy initiatives, Sam calls me. Hey, this is Sam Cass from the White House. Again, random. Wednesday morning, and I remember these things like it's yesterday, right? Wednesday morning, I'm getting ready to go to the restaurant, and he goes, "Remember that thing we talked about when you were here some months ago?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, we're about to do it." He goes, "I want you to come up with some recipes for a family of four, a week of recipes for $60 less." Okay, no problem. He goes, "And then we want to shoot it." He goes, "Can you come to the White House on Saturday?" It's Wednesday. "Can you come to the White House on Saturday?" I'm like, dude, like, so I look at my calendar. I'm like, actually, I got a speaking engagement. I'm like, I can't do it. He doesn't take no for an answer. He goes, "Well, we really like you to be a part of it," and da 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 da. I've never ever ever canceled a speaking engagement. The light bulb goes off in my head. This is probably a once in a lifetime chance. Da, da, da. So
Yeah, how many invitations do you get for the White House?
okay, so I come to my senses and I said, "Okay, Sam, let me figure it out." So sure enough, I figured it out. I created the menu. I went to the White House and like, so it was me, Jose Andres, and Art Smith, and we all were assigned the same task, and we all were shooting our own videos or whatever, but we all share in the kitchen. So it was a great day. You know, it was all day, but it was a great day. So completed that, left, and then maybe a month and a half, 2 months later, I get the call from Sam. He goes, "Hey, everybody really loved what you did. We're going to launch the program with you. There's going to be a whole announcement and the whole 9 yards." And so, sure enough, that summer, it was like June, they invited like 1,000 chefs to come to the White House lawn. And it was general seating, but for the people that were instrumental in helping put this together, whatever, had a front row seat. And I was one of those people. So that whole experience, man, I'm getting chills right now just talking about that. That whole experience was just amazing. It was surreal. It was surreal. Yeah.
Now you got to share a little bit. So what was the White House kitchen like? Is that like an up to date hotel kind of like kitchen? Or like give us an idea what that
Yeah.
White House
So
kitchen looks like.
the funny thing about the White House, which I didn't know, is small. So the dinner that we did, the Obama's first state dinner that we did, it was 400 guests, and they had to rent a tent and put it on the lawn because the White House is small. It literally is a house with a couple of
Yeah.
extensions, but it's small. And so the kitchen, it's a solid hotel type kitchen. It wasn't really expansive and it wasn't state of the art, but it had all the necessary equipment and everything worked. I mean, it was that simple. But doing a dinner for 400 in that kitchen, oh, dude, we had crust cores and we were prepping food and putting it in carts. We had to roll it across the yard. Like it was, we had to stage a whole other kitchen outside of the kitchen because the kitchen was small. So it was,
So what was the security like? I mean, it sounds like bringing in tents and equipment and, lots of chefs that probably don't exactly have White House clearance usually. What did you have to go through to get in there?
Before you can even step on the grounds, they do a background check. All right. So once you clear that, then they're like, okay, you show up at such and such gate on such a street, and it's a big high fence, and there's a guard there. You got to show your ID. I don't know if it was 2 forms of ID, but you had to show ID, and big doors open up. And then you have this 50-foot walk before you get to another guard gate. This guard gate, you have to walk through a metal detector the whole night. Like literally everything comes off out of your pockets. It goes through. You walk through a metal detector. All right, you clear that. Then the house itself is probably another 150 feet. Dude, between leaving that metal detector and getting to the house, every major armed forces is there walking or rolling. And when I say rolling, it could be an SUV, it could be the wheel thing that you're on and you're rolling around. And I'm telling you, everybody is strapped. So you have DC police, you have FBI, you have Marines, you have Navy, you have White House police. You pass 40 people before you even get to the White House. You walk in the door, it's the same thing. Like the security, dude, the security's insane. But once you made clearance, and literally we got in, we had full autonomy to walk around the White House, go in any room we want. We went upstairs to see where the Obamas, where the actual residence part is. We went upstairs, we hung out there. Yeah, like once you're in, you're in.
Once you're in, you're in.
Once you're in, you're in.
That sounds good. So did you also get a chance to interact with the family to some degree, or with Michelle, given that they kind of picked you out as somebody who curated part of what they wanted to present to the world?
Both times. So both times I interacted with, we got to interact with Michelle. When I went back the second time, I didn't see Barack, and we didn't see the kids. But after the dinner, they had us stay around, and they literally personally came and thanked us and did the photo op, and we were just joking, and it was a long day for everybody, but everybody was high. It was, they felt it was successful. They loved the food. So we got to interact then. And then when I went back, I got to interact a little bit with Michelle.
See, this is so powerful. These are some of the most influential people in the world.
Yep.
And they have the courtesy and the appreciation to do this. We, at the end of the day, you and me, I mean, one could say we're just chefs, or we're chefs, but you know that it's been more than once where I've worked with people that didn't have the courtesy to do this, where they're just like, they look at it as, we paid the expense. What else is there to say right now? Yeah. And I think it speaks a lot about them as who they are, that they take out that time and make sure to show you appreciation. Yeah,
I totally agree. I thought that was really, really special that they did that. And we didn't even know. So we got finished the dinner, high five, we're just cleaning up or whatever. And Sam goes, hang back for a little bit. And it was their request. They wanted to meet us. Yeah, man, that's special.
Yeah.
That's special. So, yeah.
It's just powerful. And I encourage every chef to seek out working relationships where this is not the exception. It took me some time to come from that harsh environment that you also kind of grew up in.
Yes.
These European hardcore chefs, little appreciation, and then realizing there is a group of people that show this, and they're willing to make a step into the kitchen, or at least into your direction, to show you appreciation. And
Yeah.
these families exist, and I
Yep.
encourage every private chef to seek them out, and
Yep.
don't settle before you feel that way.
I totally agree. I had experience last year where I worked for a gentleman who guy's a billionaire, like literally. And him and his wife would come into the galley and thank everybody, like every night. And, you know, would stand and chat with us. And his attitude was, I'm only as good as the people that work with me, and not for me, but work with me, right? And I mean, this guy has 12,000 employees, and he built his business from scratch. He's in the auto business, and he built his business from scratch, and that's how he did it. Appreciating people. That's in the philosophy. That's in the company
Yeah.
mantra.
And one of the
Huge.
things, yeah, one of the things I learned is that if you operate like that, you actually get more, not out of people, but people are willing to deliver more at a discount. Like,
Yeah, man.
I've personally taken pay cuts to work with better people.
Right.
And I've left money on the table
Yeah.
because I didn't want to work with a certain kind of people
Yep.
anymore. And,
Yep.
and it's like, there is a limit to where you can just add dollars to the paycheck, where people are like, no, I'm not doing it. Like, okay, the first couple incremental steps, you're like, okay, a little bit, but eventually
Right.
you're fed up and you're willing to take a proper pay cut and just
Yep.
go and find people that you actually
Yep.
appreciate working with.
Yep. I totally agree. And that's a very good point, Hans, to your listeners and chefs and would-be chefs, etc. Like, don't sell yourself cheap. You have to do a self-awareness check all the time. Don't chase the money. And I tell young people all the time, if you're good at your craft, you don't have to chase money. Money will chase you. You decide what job you want to take, man. It's so important.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
important.
And it's also, Warren Buffett and Tony Robbins say this is how you get bulletproof for a recession. See, only if you're delivering average quality, you're not recession proof.
Amen.
As long as you are able to deliver over average results, if you actually hone in your craft and you have a certain skill set,
Yep.
recessions don't really touch you.
I agree. No, I agree. It's a very good point. And I just want to touch on our upbringing in this industry. So I'm on a project right now. I'm out in Seattle, and I'm at a hotel, being a band-aid and filling the gaps. And there's a young cook here. He's 19 years old, and he literally said to me last night, he goes, "You're different." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You're firm, but you're so laid back. You're not like other chefs where they're like, that just, for lack of a better word, sometimes being an asshole."
Yeah.
And I said, I thanked him for recognizing that. And I tell people all the time, that's who I am. But I had to get there, because going back to what you were talking about, the hardcore way that we came up, there's a lot of chefs that haven't stepped back and haven't realized you really don't have to be that asshole to get good results.
Yeah.
You can be a decent human being, be a taskmaster, whatever, but you don't have to be like those chefs that we came up under.
100%. And I think actually life expectancies of those chefs is also rather short. And there's some statistics to that, but I think there's a different way of being, and it looks like you and me have a very similar upbringing from the original first days in the kitchen to how we evolved, and it's cool to see, because I think it's also a reason many people leave the kitchen or don't even step into it, like these over harsh environments. And I think it's good to be firm and develop the fundamentals, like of that 19-year-old. You want to show him that there needs to be sincerity, but you don't need to be serious about everything, and you don't need to be an asshole about everything.
Definitely.
Like there is a way to be firm but gentle, and have people not push you over, but still bring out the best in themselves.
Totally agree. I keep it light, man. I'm cracking jokes all the time. We got a job to do. You got to have fun. it's got to be fun, man. Cooking is fun. Like, don't make it
Yeah.
be a grind, you know?
So what are you currently excited about? What are you working on? Some of the projects that are close to your heart?
Man. All right. Little shameless pug. That right there. Um, that's my third
Nice.
cookbook. And I spent a year and a half working on this. And there's a couple boxes that I check off on this. One, I incorporate all of my health conscious stuff in this one book. So I cover vegan, vegetarian, raw, gluten-free, dairy-free recipes, and I have everything else. So I got meat, fish, poultry, desserts, the whole nine yards, right? Another box that I checked, I wanted to do a multi-leveled cookbook. So I literally have three different levels of cooks that I speak to. Commis, chef de partie, chef de cuisine. And so that's based on ingredients, it's based on length of recipe, and then it's based on skill set, right? And I just feel like for me, this book was like, I want to create a cookbook that if I say to a person, you only have one book to buy this year, I want this to be that book. If you know somebody who's just starting to cook, I want this to be that book. If you are looking for recipes that speak to some kind of food challenge, I want this to be that book. And so I'm really proud of it. I really am. It's like 260 pages. It's 200 recipes, color, the whole nine yards. And so we go to print real soon, and then I'm gonna go on tour. I'm gonna travel around the country and I'm gonna do book signings, but I'm gonna do book signings in a way I do it in a private dinner format. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna sell tickets, and my website is where it's central location. ChefMarvinWoods.com is the central location. You can buy the book there, and then also there's a calendar that's gonna go up, and it's like, hey, I'll be in Dallas on this date. Buy a ticket to the dinner, or I'll be in New York, or I'll be wherever. So
I think this is actually one of the coolest ways to launch the book is because, you give them an experience, an immersive experience. You combine it with all the senses, there's flavor to it, there's smell to it.
exactly.
And then you give them the book on the way home. And
Yep.
I think it's very different than just have like a book reading,
Totally
which,
agree.
I mean, I guess book readings can be fun too, but, just give them a real taste of the
Yeah.
food.
Well, and here's how I came up with that, right? As a private chef, again, the direct excitement and fulfillment when you put the plate in front of somebody. So yeah, I got this book and I have all these recipes, but you haven't tasted me executing my recipes. So let me show you what that is. Let me show you how I do it as a chef on a higher level. And now you have a memory now, just like you said, taste, smell, feel.
Yeah.
You have a memory, and not for nothing, I will also be entertaining and in the dining room and all those things. That to me, man, that's an experience. That's so much more than just showing up at a bookstore and me signing and saying thank you for purchasing it. Um,
Yeah.
so
And people love that stuff. People love to be in the room with the chef, having
yeah,
a more intimate experience than in a
yeah,
200-seat restaurant where you just at best say, hi, did you enjoy the meal? Where there
exactly.
is actually a little bit of engagement. And I think there's a real demand for that kind of experience. And, the fact that
Yeah,
you are able to use it as a launch for your book is just makes it so much more special for yourself too.
yeah, yeah, for sure, man. Again, at this stage of the game, doing this for man, I've been at this for 35 years plus. At this stage of the game, I still love it. But one of the things that I love about it is how I get to curate my life and my experience. So I did yachts for
Yeah.
5 years, right? I get to curate that. Private dinners, I get to curate that. So that's a really good feeling. That's the epitome of being able to do what we do it in a way that you want to do it, as opposed to answering to somebody and having to do it, you know.
And I think that's the beauty, that you get to a point where you express yourself through what you're doing, and you get appreciated for it, and you can make a living of it. Actually, that's the definition of ikigai. You know, are you familiar with the term ikigai?
No, tell me.
That's like that Japanese concept where, you know, it's basically 4 pillars, and one is you do what you love, you do what you're good at. The other one is you do what the world needs, and what you're being rewarded for. So in between those 4, if you're missing 1 or 2, there's always a negative experience to it, because there's a lack. Like, let's say you're really good at something that the world doesn't need, and you don't get a reward for it, but you're very skilled at it. It can be frustrating.
Right.
But if all 4 come together, you feel rewarded, appreciated, the world needs it, you do what you love, and you're good at it. And that's kind of where you live in a state of flow.
I like it. I'm gonna look that up. I might turn that into a t-shirt.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then you can also bring that to your launch events.
Exactly.
It's like
that's good.
Chef's t-shirt.
Yeah, that's good. I like it.
Well, Marvin, this has been awesome. I know you're basically about to go back into the kitchen and bust some butts, and I'm just kidding. And I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much.
No,
I want to make sure one more time, where can people connect with you, find out more about the launch of your new book?
Yeah. So my website is chefmarvinwoods.com. And then all of my handles are Chef Marvin Woods. So my IG, my Facebook, my Instagram, it's all Chef Marvin Woods. So I keep it simple.
Awesome. And we'll also make sure to add those to the show notes. Marvin, thank you so much for making the time today. And also just really following your own instincts, you know, and turning your own itch into something that's worthwhile for other people. I think that's like the true definition of a life well lived.
Amen. Amen. I feel that. Thank you so much for having me. I'll when I get back to the East Coast, man, I'll hit you up when I head back up to the north.
Definitely. We have to hang out in person.
Done. Thank you, man.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, FultonFishMarket.com, the best seafood in the nation, trusted by the best chefs in the world. Aside from offering premium seafood, they also make life easier for you by delivering all these outstanding products right to your doorstep. Visit the official website www.fultonfishmarket.com and explore their incredible selection of seafood, and let your clients experience quality that has captivated palates for generations. Use code PRIVATECHEF at checkout to get 15% of your first order. When it comes to seafood, FultonFishMarket.com is the name we trust. Thank you for joining us at the Private Chef podcast. If you know any highly skilled chefs that want to take their life to the next level, make sure to share this podcast with them. And if you enjoyed this episode, click subscribe and check out our upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.